Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? Let me, not us, let me know if we're live because it is New York Giants game day, week 2 of the NFL season. Very excited for it. Excited for the Giants to bounce back. This is as good as of an opponent as you can get to bounce back against because the Arizona Cardinals are not very good. So if the Giants lose, it is full on panic, and deservedly so, right? Like, of course, there'll be some overreactions to it, but overall panic wouldn't be an overreaction. But the Giants are going to win because it's Giants game day, and that's what the Giants are going to do. Um, we'll get into it into this all in a second. I'm solo, because Justin texted me this morning saying he can't be on it. I don't know why, but he can't. And then Danny, I don't think was planning to be on it because it was supposed to be Justin on it. And I don't think Danny's awake despite me sending him a message. So I know Grump was in the chat last week. If Grump is in here, comment because I'll have you on. Unless you don't want to be on. You're not required to do that. So I want to get into some questions and stuff. And basically, like I said it in the beginning, this is a game the Giants have to win. And to me, to feel, again, a win is a win. So I'm going to feel good out after it, even if they win on a fumble return for a touchdown at the end of the game, right? Especially the first one of the season is always going to be exciting. I remember 2020 when we went 0-5. They won that game versus Washington at the time. Tay Crowder returned for a touchdown, and I was super excited. I didn't care that it was about as ugly as a win as you can get. But to feel good about this team going forward, playing the 49ers, playing a good schedule, and feeling like, hey, they can beat the Seahawks. Maybe they can, compete with some teams that are maybe have a little more talent. They have to, for me, like win this game handedly, right? Like I think the defense needs to smother Arizona, and the offense needs to look efficient and put up points. Eric, what are the McKeithen rumors? So we'll get into all of it. Obviously, the offensive line has been the topic of conversation, and rightfully so. I mean, that week 1 game was as bad as an offensive line performance as I've seen covering this team in 5 years. And I've seen 8-sack games twice versus the Arizona Cardinals. I've seen games where there's been more sacks, but that was the worst offensive line performance I've seen. And it was just Mark Lewinsky and Evan Neal getting consistently beat. Brian Porras says, do you expect Lewinsky to hold up better today? I do. Now, that's a very low bar because he had maybe the worst pass blocking performance in the NFL last week. So it's going to be interesting. Can Glowinski get Glowinski at the end of was very bad in the first 10 to 12 games of the season last year, and then the last 4 or 5 he kind of came into his own. He still wasn't good, but he came into his own a little bit, and then again. So can he get back to a slightly below average pass protector? Because that's what we thought we were getting when we signed him. If you guys watched the film breakdown when the Giants signed him, it's like, hey, this guy is a average at best pass protector, but he's a good run blocker. And he has dipped as a pass. He's been a good run blocker. So, and then Captain 80 Swedish asks, who will start at right guard? It hasn't been reported, and there's been nothing put out there. Sometimes when the reporters know something, but it's not something they can fully report, especially offensive line rotation or stuff, they will hint at it. The only hinting I've seen at it is that there might be some rotation between Azudu and Glowinski, which would be weird because Azudu hasn't played right guard, right? He's played, since he's been with the Giants and mostly in college, he played left guard. So it'll be interesting to see because Bredesen obviously has some experience at right guard in the NFL, not a ton, but at this point, I don't know if I want to mess with Bredesen, keep moving him around. I don't want to punish him for being the best of the 3. So we'll see. But at the same time, it's I'm not definitive that Azudu is going to be better than Glowinski, right? Because this situation has been compared to Nate Solder and Matt Parrott from a couple years ago, where I was definitive. Matt Parrott is better than Nate Solder. Not good, but he is definitively better than Nate Solder. With Azudu, I don't know if I can. I don't really have much to stand on and say that he is definitively better. So it's going to be interesting. And then Evan Neal. Evan Neal, obviously, that was about as bad as performance as he's ever had. Can Evan Neal be good against bad pass rushers, which is what the Arizona Cardinals have? Because that's as low as the bar as that is, that would be a mini win for the Giants. It's hey, when we're not facing good pass rushers, he can be all right. So that's the bar for him. Eshawn says really sucks for Azeez not getting to play his little brother BJ. Yeah. And I was because we actually did talk about Azeez on the preview pod, and then we cut it out because Ryan Dunleavy said he jumped the gun on that. So it's not actually out there. With Azeez Ojulari, who is listed as doubtful with a hamstring injury. Nate Solder was horrible though. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Matt Parrott was definitively better than Nate Solder. Azeez, man, this really sucks because Azeez is a good player, right? And anytime he was on the field last year, he produced. Like his pass rush win rate increased a ton from rookie year to year 2, which was like, even though he had a good rookie season, that's where we were like, hey, he doesn't win consistently enough. When he wins, he gets production, but he doesn't win consistently enough. And that's what he did in year 2, but he didn't play enough, and he got injured 4 different times last year. He came into camp on PUP. And then he got hurt in the preseason game, came back week 3, got hurt a couple of weeks later, missed 7 games, and then got hurt again and was playing like limited, getting, barely any reps towards the end of the season. But it was still like on the active roster outside of the Colts game when they were, or outside the Eagles game when they were resting guys. And I think he might have been a DMP for the Colts too. I can't remember exactly. But again, this is the 5th injury, and it's a hamstring thing. Yeah, it's one, I've always been a big proponent of. Like, if the Giants took a pass rusher in this past draft, I would have been totally happy with it, as long as it was a guy I liked. So I've always wanted to continue to build the pass rush group, especially on the edge. But yeah, I mean, unless this is the one game, and from here on out, he's healthy, but that's just not likely from what we've seen. Like, that's another position that's added to like a big need, right? Where if you had Kayvon and Azeez healthy, it's still a position I would like to add another player to, and including high draft capital, but to where now it goes into like an actual need. I don't give anyone else a chance to talk, so I have to take breaks and drink water. I'm a big water drinker. By the way, a very cool gift from one of our listeners. I shouted him out on Instagram. Very cool gift. Shot glasses. I tried to get them on the store, but I guess our store doesn't have shot glasses, which I feel like that would be like a great merch idea, but it is what it is. So let's get into some questions. Kev Wallace. See, now, I guess people have kind of gotten rid of this. Let's not forget Andrew Thomas struggled for almost 2 years. Neal, during his rookie season, had a stretch of games where he was getting better, then he got hurt. Yeah, but Neal, when he was getting better, was kind of just against really bad. Like, the Ravens game was probably his best game. They just had really bad pass rushers. Like, JPP was unbelievable. I couldn't believe he was out there, how washed he was. And then Owe, who was just not. I think he might have played a good week 1 this year, but he took a step. Thomas was phenomenal year 2. At least as a pass protector. Like, he was the one like exciting thing about year 2 at the end of this, especially once Daniel Jones went down. It was just I remember watching those games. I'm like, I'm just gonna watch the left tackle. And Thomas even Thomas's rough rookie year showed growth. Like, I was proud of, like, I have the tweet. I am proud of Andrew Thomas's rookie season. Never could feel that way about Evan Neal. And Evan Neal was worse than Andrew Thomas anyways at their worst. Should we sign Jason Peters and Leo Collins? Jason Peters got signed with the Seahawks. I don't know did the contract details come out on that? If that was like a minimum contract, I can't believe we didn't like make a run at him. Leo Collins, I'd like to find out what exactly happened wrong. Like, he's the one guy, like Justin Pugh, nah. But Leo Collins is the one where it's like, maybe you could give that guy some money, but I doubt that's going to happen. Let's see. Desmond says he's out in Arizona hoping for a damn win. Are you going to the game, Desmond? It's always fun when the team comes to your state. Like the Giants, the Giants come to Florida pretty often with Tampa and I guess Miami and Jacksonville. It's once every 8 years. And then they have the new rule. So we've played the Dolphins this year. So this will be the 3rd time in 5 years we played the Dolphins. Because remember, they played them in the Mike Glennon game when they added the 17th game. They played Eli's last game. I was there in MetLife for that. And then I was out there the Monday Night Football game in 2015, which ended up being Tom Coughlin's last win. That was the Odell game. So I get to say I was there for Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin's last win. Now, Tom Coughlin had like 6 other games that ended up in that, like 5 other games that ended up in L's that year. But I was there for both of their last wins. Here, we got Danny King Superfan. I didn't even see the question. Do you expect JMS to struggle against the Arizona D-line? No, because I thought JMS held up pretty well against Dallas unless he was facing Micah Parsons. But with JMS, you just got to get the snaps up. Like, that's my biggest thing. It's not like – and next week will be a great test versus the 49ers defensive line, even though they play an even front, so he's not going to be facing a nose tackle a ton. But I do expect JMS to handle the blocking. But you have to get the snaps up because it was messing up DJ's timing, especially on the quick game. And the Giants are going to have to work on more quick game if their offensive line issues continue like they are, which I don't think any of us expect to not. You've got to get those snaps up. That's that's one of those things where it's like week 1, we'll talk about it. Like, yeah, besides the snaps, week 3, if that's happening, that's just unacceptable. Like, it's almost like obviously you're not going to bench him, but you just can't do that. That has to be fixed. Let's see, what do we got? And Andrew Thomas, like, we don't even know for sure if Andrew Thomas is playing at this point. I think he is, though. The only thing is remember that Dallas game in 2021, week 5? It was reported that morning that he was going to play, and then he ended up not playing. So I'm not confident if he's going to play, but everyone makes it seem like he is going to. And I think it's a lot different, too, where they were 1-3 facing Dallas. Now they're 0-1 and wanting to actually win this season. Daniel Murray is going to his first Giants game today. I think Desmond said he was going to as well. So that's very cool. So first Giants, how old are you, Daniel? I went to my first Giants game at, I think, 23 years. It was that Dolphins Monday Night Football game. So one, I live in Florida, and 2, my parents aren't football fans, so I never really went to any Giants games until I had the money to just drive and go. But I've actually probably been to more Bucs games than Giants games. Or actually, no, I've been to more Giants games at this point now because I've been going to them for the last few years. But I've been to a Giants Bucs game, Jason Garrett's last game. I've been there for a lot of like historic moments. Eli's last win, Eli's last game, Tom Coughlin's last win, and I'm going to the Patriots game this year, so I'm going to Joe Judge's return. Philip says, will you count this as a loss if we win by -10? No, a win is a win, and I will be excited. Again, I said I will be excited if they win by 1 point. But I also we will tear this team up analysis-wise if there's like really bad stuff that happened, right? Which we've done after wins before too. I remember the Seahawks win in 2020. We came on that podcast and ripped Jason Garrett, specifically in the offensive apart. The Texans game last year, we ripped the offensive game plan in that game, even though that they won. So it doesn't count as a loss, and you can get better. But it's the NFL, so you never. This isn't like college football. It's the NFL, so you'd never be happy with a loss unless you're one of the best teams in the NFL, and you just have that standard. But the Giants aren't at that standard yet. Let's see. One of you guys want to do guess the inactives? So I'm kind of confused on the rules, because I don't know how many inactives they have to have when they I didn't get a response yet. So they activated 2 guys from the practice squad, but I don't know if that means that they have to also make 8 guys inactive, right, to get down to 47, or do the practice squads not count against the 47? So I'm really confused on what to do with that. So let's guess the inactives. So let's you know what, we'll just do a 2-parter. So if they need only 6 or need 8. So Azeez and Wandale are definitely on my active. So that's 2 right there. DJ Davidson, he's the 6th defensive tackle coming off an injury, so that makes sense. No offensive line injury, so I'm expecting Lemieux to be inactive 2 weeks in a row. Javarius Owens he's not on the injury report, but he's also, they got McCain out there, no safety injuries. I'm going to go Javarius Owens. But it'd be very interesting that once Javarius Owens, if they make Bobby McCain a healthy scratch. So right now there's 5. Is Flott going to be one again? Cam Brown. I think Cam Brown was one. Let me look up last week's. What were last week's? Talking Giants. Inactive. So Flott wasn't on the injury report. So yeah, last week Cam Brown was one. I'm gonna say Cam Brown, like they have him on this team to play special teams. So Wandale, Azeez, Davidson, Lemieux, Owens. My 6-1 would be if Flott is healthy, they want him on this roster. And Gary Brightwell, they even played Doug. This is tough. I am spending way too much time on this. This isn't like probably the most boring part of the show, but it's the part I enjoy. Dual barrel sauce. I think Darnay if Flott is healthy, but I don't know. Let's see. Is there any defensive tackle? Edge? No, they upgraded O'Shane, so they're not going to have any edges. And obviously Azeez. Linebacker Cam Brown would be the one. So let's just put Cam Brown. Corner room. Let's say Flott. Safety. We already said Owen, so that's that. The offensive line we already talked about Lemieux. Wide receiver room Wandale. I'm just gonna say Flott, I guess. I'm just gonna say Flott. And then so if they need 8, if anyone can explain that rule to me, I don't think they need to go to 8 because I don't think they did last week. But then I'll say Brown, and I'm interested to see if once Tywan Jones, once his elevations are up, if they add him to the active roster, which would be like, who do they remove from the roster for a special teams only player? Duo Barrel says he only played 4 snaps last week. If Florida's back, maybe. Yeah, that's true. They did give Nick McLeod more reps than Darnay Holmes. All right, let's get into some questions. Goatman says, would it be crazy to say I want to see a Hyatt get a deep target on the first drive? I'm hoping our boys can just have a couple big plays early and get a lot of confidence back. So this is the game where Hyatt can have a big play because they play a lot of zone, but they're aggressive in their zone, which means safeties get out of place. So this could be and I'm telling you, Hyatt would have had a big play if DJ put the ball on the money in that Cowboys game, right? That would have been like a 30-plus yard play. But DJ put the ball behind him, and then Hyatt drops it on top of that, and that now he has 0 for 0 in the game. But Hyatt, is just hard to put him out on the field consistently because he really does struggle with press. I don't think the Cardinals will press him up too much. Maybe they will adjust. I don't think the Cardinals are a team that changes what they do a ton week to week, depending on the team they play, and especially against the Giants. I don't think they're going to change up a ton. So I don't think they're going to face a ton of press today. And when they were in press last week, they made it very clear, like, hey, we are in press man, which was very, very low. Should I start Hyatt or Trey Burks in fantasy? Honestly, Tucker, I'm not really great at fantasy questions. Anthony Loretti says, does Xavier man up on Zach Ertz or another safety? I think we see Xavier manned up on Zach Ertz. One, that's their most targeted player, and Xavier should win that battle. But Xavier, like when they went into single high safety looks, which is what Wink Martindale likes to do, McKinney was the one down there. Like I thought McKinney played an awesome game, and Pinnock they use as the deep safety. So yeah, I do see McKinney being manned up on Zach Ertz. What do we got? Odds that Budda Baker I don't know, but Budda Baker is like their best player on defense. What do we think the Giants struggle with the most going into week 2? That's actually a good question. Like, what do the Giants struggle with the most when they're playing a bad team like the Arizona Cardinals? I don't think there's anything on the defensive side. Like, how will they hold up against the run is one, against a team that's gonna like to run the ball and has a good running back in James Conner. That's one. I don't want to take the cheap answer of saying like Evan Neal and Mark Lewinsky because that's probably the right answer. I think they'll. I don't know. This Cardinals team is bad, so it's hard to like point out anything that's not just totally created on this. So I guess protecting on the right side. At least in to see if Arizona throws a bunch of stunts and stuff at them too. Oh, This is a cheap one. Townsend Armor says special teams execution. That's a pretty easy answer. The heat is coming at McGahee. That McGahee presser. We don't really talk about pressers on the pods. That McGahee presser was so embarrassing. I don't know if you guys saw. We posted the clip on Talking Giants. It's like, moved on. We talked about it. We moved on to Arizona. It's like, dude, give them a no answer without actually saying you're not answering. It's like it's coaching media 101. Like, and the whole beat will cop for the guy saying he's a good coach and should be a head coach one day. And the one time he's facing any actual real heat, like, he goes and does that. And also, like, he's very I really do think he's like a little too online. One, I think he talks to the media a lot. There's no reason the media would be praising him that much, even if he was a great special teams coach, which he hasn't proven. And like the whole stare down thing, like when that happened, he opens up his presser, doesn't even take a question on it, like addresses it like it's some big like scandal that he needs it. Like, so like the heat is, if the special teams continue to struggle, the heat is going to be on McGahee. And to be honest, go back and listen to the Coaching Hires podcast in January of 2022. I remember saying this in Alabama with McGahee when they brought him back, and I was like, yeah, I wish Brian Dable would have just found his own special teams coordinator. And then you find out the interview process was basically like Dable just giving the job to him. I have it on authority. He is well respected. He is very well respected. I think we're going to see interceptions out of our secondary today. They say Banks is better at pass breakups, but I think he's getting a pick this game from jumping around. The thing is, they're going to be playing a ton of man. I just don't think Banks will obviously get an interception in the NFL, but I'm never going to be like, this is a great game for Banks. He's not an interception guy. He plays press man, and like you said, he gets pass breakups. This could be a game where the safeties maybe get one. I want to see McKinney get back on the interception board. He had 5 interceptions this season before last, and none last year. Sneeze. You thought? Let's see. Bobby Johnson's getting a lot of heat too. Amazing guy says, yeah, he's getting a lot of heat. Now, special teams coordinator, like, hey, I'm blaming you for the special teams. I do want to maybe we'll have a real conversation about this on the mailbag pod this week. Actually, we're not having a mailbag pod this week because it's Thursday Night Football. So the next week, maybe. It's very hard to judge position coaches, but again, we said it a little bit, but he's given us no reason to believe why he's a good offensive line coach. But I will say, and we've said it before, like, stop blaming Bobby Johnson for the rotation. That is a Brian Dable thing. Like, Bobby Johnson doesn't just get free reign to rotate, and they didn't rotate in the actual game, but they did a lot in preseason. Like, that's a Brian Dable, that's a Brian Dable decision. Go at Brian Dable for that. Supposedly they rotate a little bit in practice this week. I don't know. The big dashes. The conversation needs to be had for sure. And again, there's because the Giants won a lot, there's anyone who thinks Brian Dable should be fired after this, unless Brian Dable commits crimes, he should not be fired. But because the Giants won last year, any flaw that was there or didn't pop, it gets looked over, or there's things that didn't come up in a winning season, it'll be interesting to see how he deals with stuff. Like what if he does need to fire Bobby Johnson, but that's his boy. He was there with Buffalo. It's very hard for coaches to fire their friends. I mean, it's hard to fire anybody in general, but to fire your friends is tough. I think it's funny because obviously the O-line coach joke. There is that one guy who thinks I'm the O-line coach, and I wonder if he's seeing the hashtag fire Bobby Skinner, and it's finally people are seeing what I've been trying to say. Doug Analytics, is Isaiah Simmons a complete liability against the run? No, he's just not great at. But I will say, I put a run fit on the film review this week. I mean, Simmons had a great play. He goes, stacks, dips, and gets in on a tackle. McKinney had a good play. So Simmons is going to be out there, and again, he's going to be used to blitz and play man coverage. But he also had a bad play in man coverage. He got beat on that out route by Ferguson, I believe, on 3rd and long. But Ferguson, Dak kind of threw it behind him, and Ferguson dropped it. Also, and so we don't remember Isaiah Simmons getting beat on a 3rd down. Over under Saquon Barkley 100 rushing yards. I think they're going to hand him the ball and they're going to win this game. So yeah, I'm definitely going over. I think they're going to have a lot of success doing it as well. All right, so we'll go for a couple more minutes, and maybe with some final last minute questions. Houston game plan. Now, I don't want to do Houston game plan if the Cardinals are using the Houston's game plan, where they're like, hey, we're going to throw run blitzes, we're going to stack the box, we're going to do everything to stop the run. And the Giants continue to do that because they're a bad team and they're able to, but it's like the most go back again, that's because it was a win. Like no one remembered. Like that was one of the worst offensive game plans of the year last year, but because they won, no one cared. Like the passing game was there it was DJ's most yards per attempt. And every time they scored was because of the passing game. But you look at, Saquon Barkley had, 35 carries and average 4. Like Saquon carried them to a win. No. Anytime they had to pass the ball to every time they scored. It'd be like if the Giants threw the ball 60 times, but the only times they scored were off of Saquon Barkley big runs, but he only had 11 runs. Like it was essentially that. DJ performance prediction. So here's something. I'm not going to give you like a stat line or anything, but the Giants passing game last week was different than what it was last year. They were trying to create stuff for Darren Waller. They were trying to create stuff downfield, and it wasn't the quick game stuff that they worked with. And their play action, Dallas was all over it. So I'm talking about their drop back passing. Do they adjust? And again, like they don't game plan. Their game plan isn't put together this past week. It's put together before the Cowboys game is over. Obviously, you make changes and stuff and stuff, but how much do they tweak what they're doing? Like how much do they tweak what they're doing from week 1 to week 2? Because do they go back to some of the stuff they're doing at the end of last year despite facing a bad Arizona team, or do they, because they're facing an Arizona team, do they try and work some of these, like getting like stuff that takes longer protection? So we'll see how they do it, but I think they kind of have to get back to a little bit of their drop back quick game, and running the ball until teams start respecting you running the ball, and then when your play action game starts opening up a lot more depending on the way teams start playing you. Let's see. Which rookie cornerback do you feel better about in this game based on their week 1? Oh, Banks definitely had a better game than Hawkins week 1. Now Banks played a lot less, but Hawkins had the PI, but he lost at the release a couple times. CeeDee Lamb routed him up on a comeback on the outside, but CeeDee Lamb can do that to anybody. But definitely Banks. I thought Banks looked better than Hawkins, but I thought Hawkins held his own, which is nice. So. Was week 1 Bobby O what we should expect all season, or does he have another level? I mean, he was solid. He wasn't amazing, but he was solid. He did force a fumble. But yeah, I expect a little more out of Bobby O. All right, I guess I'm going to end this. Shout out Justin Penick and Danny King for absolutely nothing. Shout out the chat actually helping me get through this 30 minutes solo. Solo's is one of those things where it's kind of like I can't make any jokes really solo. Like I need someone to bounce them off of. This isn't a comedy show; it's a football show. So, truly do appreciate you guys. If you guys want to, so we'll be live after the game. It's probably be a little later tonight because we played in the 4:00 window. We'll be live recording our podcast on Patreon.com/TalkingGiants. It's $2 a month, $10 a month if you want some more stickers, whatever. You do get a free sticker. Also, I've been adding game notes. So this year I'm trying to take better notes and keep track of them too. Not just take notes, but keep track of them for future reference. So I am putting together, I track every week, like the Giants coverage usage. And this is all manual, like cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, cover 6, cover 2 man, 1 robber, fire zone, blah, blah, blah. And then hey, Saquon versus stack box and light boxes, and the Giants, how much do they stack? Also DJ pressure under pressure, and then also the plays I use from the film review and stuff. So I'm putting those on Patreon every single week. for the Patreon members. So I think that's a pretty cool little thing, and it's going to help me. And I was talking with Research Rick, NYGCLT, and because I in the preseason I used one of the plays they used with Waller and called back some plays they did last year and how Waller helps change that. And I want to, on my social media not the film reviews, but my social media breakdowns, be able to call back to other plays. But I can't do that in season because I can remember, hey, I think this happened this game, but I don't have the time to go scrub through film where I did in the preseason. So this is good. Like, hey, didn't they, like, there was a play they used with Darius Slayton last week on mesh where it looked like mesh and then he goes and takes it deep. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they did that with Wandale versus Detroit, but I don't have time to go scrub through Detroit film. So then I could be like, hey, I could go look. Okay, there's my notes. I put on the film review. Bam. So if you guys want to join that, cool. If not, also cool. If not, it'll be live on 8 a.m. on YouTube. It'll be on the podcast app sometimes early morning for your commute. Really do appreciate you guys. Let's win this game, man. Because if we lose this game, I don't know how I'm going to get through a season covering this team. So appreciate you guys. Let's go big.